Okay, there it says recording.
Okay. Peace and blessings. My name is Sister Noel, and I am here today with my dear, dear, dear sister on the night of Kuumba creativity, Sister Liz Osun Kemi. How are you doing, Sister Liz?
I'm doing fine. How about Aragani?
Kuumba.
Yes, today is Kuumba. Um, one of my favorite days of creativity.
Yes. So, Sister Liz, you lived in Boston for a long time. So, I want to first ask you, are you from Boston? Were you born and raised in Boston?
I was born um, at the Roslindale Hospital. Um, that's it's a suburb of Boston. And just so happened that my doctor was there at the time. And I came back to 12 Millmont Street in Roxbury on Fort Hill.
Now, what was it like as far as you studying the traditions? How old were you when you started studying, and what did you start with?
Well, um, I was born in 1958. So with the height and the peak of the civil rights movement, plus you had the Vietnam War, there was a what I call a cultural explosion. So I went to my first Kwanzaa ceremony in 1966, the same year that it was, Dr. Karenga had produced it and created it. And I didn't know anything. I was just a little girl. And then they used to have drum festivals or love festivals in Harvard Square on Sundays. And I used to love hearing the drums.
Yeah.
Uh, Drums was always in my father's family, um, conga drums, bongos, tambourines. Now, my mother's side, it was piano. So I really wasn't good at both. Even my father's family had piano. I didn't take any interest in any of it actually until I was about maybe 17. I wanted to play congas.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I loved dancing. I loved, I was a performer. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't get any training for performing. I just performed.
Yeah.
But by the time I got 17, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to be a conga drummer. And so my first teacher was a brother named Kevin Alexander from California. And that was during the time of what you call that disco funk and
Yes.
whatever else. So that's what I was learning was disco and funk rhythms. And then
Mm-hmm.
he introduced me to a friend of his named Steve Hurley, who liked to play alongside of records. And then he says, "Oh yeah, my teacher is coming over," and that was Nuru Dafina. So that's
Mm-hmm.
how I met her. And then I said, "Oh yeah, I need to, be good to study the rhythms of Baba Tunde Olatunji." So I took her class at the Boston Community Music School. And then she said, "Hey, you want to be in a group?" I said, I'm starting an all women's group. There's about 13. If you come to be 13 to 14 of us. I said, okay, why not?
Wow. What year was that, sister?
That was in 1976.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Trailblazers, yes.
Yeah, we were trailblazers.
Trailblazers. So, when was your first class? What year was that? You
That was see, I met Kevin in 1976.
now, did you all, when you had classes, were they held in like dance studios, or did you all just Where did you meet?
Oh, in the living room
Mm-hmm.
during the day.
Brick and mortar, right, sister?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything was like, oh yeah, come over to my house. I got a drum. Actually, he gave me my first conga drum, and then I ended up with one of Nima Kuma had a drum. He knew my mother, and he had left a drum at our house because she had told him that I liked playing drums. So I had one of those Babatunde Olatunji big tall drums with the
Yes.
carvings on it from Nima
Yes.
Kuma. Kept that drum. I had his drum, my uncle's drum, that had a mule head skin on it, and the drum that Kevin gave me. You know, all of them were interesting.
Now, sister, you also make instruments, right?
Yes. And I make shaker rays. I haven't been making too many of them lately, living here in Savannah. But it's plenty of calabashes here and gourds.
Yeah. Now, have you traveled as an arts educator?
No, I basically, I mean, regionally in New England, I traveled. But when I go to California, I'm doing more of a metaphysical something
Yes.
or a spiritual something,
Mm-hmm.
instigating stuff or doing a performance. Um, that's about it. I haven't been able to really, even when I went to the Caribbean and like for dance, I played for Sister Aja was her dance class in St. Croix.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Yes.
that yeah, so that was back in '81.
Wow. It's really interesting how out of the root of Boston, us as individuals have expanded and moved, to many different areas in the United States, Caribbean, and Africa. Now, if you've traveled to Africa,
Yeah, my first trip to Africa, which is interesting, was what was that? That was in 1978. Yeah, that was in 1978. I did a roots tour,
yes,
and I went to Senegal and Gambia. And every morning in this one hotel, there was a new hotel that we were staying at called the Hotel Independence. So every morning there was this guy. This is a funny story. This guy, he had his bungles, right? And he would be downstairs. He was on the tour with us, and he'd be downstairs on these bungles, right? And so everybody was pretty much gathered around him now. Meanwhile, we're in Senegal, right? You got
yes,
drums, you got, tama. You have all this stuff, but he's there. I guess he's trying to find people to play with him. So I went down. I said, "Oh, you play bongos? Fantastic. Where you from?" He said that he was from Boston area. I said, "Okay." I stayed there for only a week. I went to Gorée,
mhm,
went to Gambia, stayed in Gambia. That was nice for a little while. And I was more interested in cloth.
yes,
I wasn't really seeking out drummers. It was just like, okay, I want cloth. Then I find out, come back to United States, and living on Huron Ave, and I'm up. We lived in a high rise, so I had the windows open, and I hear this, this drumming, and I'm going, oh, and I'm way up, we're like on the 20th floor or something like that. I'm going drumming, so I go down the elevator, go outside, and I could hear this drumming. And
mhm,
now on Huron Ave, we lived across the street from Fresh Pond, the reservoir. So I'm running through the woods. I'm, doing all this. And finally I come to where the person is drumming. And it's the guy that was playing in the Independence Hotel every morning. I said, oh, wow. I said, I just live right here. He's like, and you could hear me from there? I said,
that's
yeah,
right.
it carried and it called me. So
And
that was interesting there. And I thought that was funny, because anything that I hear as a drummer, I could be, at the bus stop, and all of a sudden I'm hearing like all this drumming, and it's some truck just idling.
Yeah.
I'm going, oh, the drum in the truck is, I can hear it. And the other thing this was 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
No, actually it was in 2019. Now it will be 2 years ago. And there was this Bumba group called Bumba Booyah. And I'm, one night I was hearing all this drumming, right? And my doors are closed, the air conditioner's going and everything. And I'm going, you know, I didn't pay any attention. I figured maybe somebody was driving by, had their music on, and, I'm going, okay. So the next day it was quiet in the house. I had my doors open and I'm hearing all this drumming. I'm like, oh man, this is getting deep. I mean, you can hear the bomba, I'm going, oh. So I said, let me get myself ready. I go downstairs, go out the back door, and I'm walking down the street. And then there they are, the bomba. And the people are playing bomba and they're singing and they do this bomba for revolution, to make things change, to make political statements. And so I'm going, wow. So when I got there was nobody dancing. So I said, oh, but the music was good. I said, look, I got to do something, right? Because people don't know, sometimes people don't know when there's nobody on the floor, they're dancing, and the music moves you, you get out there and do whatever you feel like.
Yes.
So afterwards, the sister says to me, she says, oh, you want to know something? She said, when we were playing, I could feel you coming. I felt the door open. You walk right here, and then here you are. I said, okay. As soon as she said that, the mailman comes. He says, yes, and I heard you down the street too. And then another person, and then all these people started to gather, and then they started to talk about bomba, what it's for. It's for enjoyment, but it's also a place where people can gather, and then they can look at what's happening to them politically, or if they need to call a revolution, like they did back in the days down here, where they had all these different rebellions, as they call, and it was the drum that would call people.
Now, I want to ask you, and I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Nunfula?
Oh, Nunfula. That's now Nunfula is my friend Brother Majid's collective. He's the leader of it, and he was given that position by Papa Aziz.
Okay.
And Papa Aziz was asked, I forgot this one woman who was here, who's now passed. I never met her, but she asked Papa Aziz to come in. She says, I know a drummer. It'd be good if we could get tall spirit dancers and people to learn to have this culture and art be a catalyst for change. And so that's how that started. And so I work with Nunfula on and off. Right now, we're not doing anything because of the COVID.
So that's dealing with the cultural history in Georgia, right? The Gullah Geechee?
Well, it's a mixture because there's another brother named David Pleasant. He does like the Gullah Geechee.
Okay.
And that one is called Drum Folk Tradition. And Drum Folk Tradition is another collective. People just come like, they used to come over here, like all these drummers would come over to our house and we would just work out. But David's, he has done extensive research on drum folk tradition. That's from the hand bone to the spoons, to the sticks, to the playing your body as a drum.
Yes.
And it's almost like when they're doing the body as a drum, it's like the movements are like, it reminds me of capoeira.
Yes.
It's fighting. And then the strength, you have to be really, fit. That's
Yes.
what I noticed. When you do Juba, you don't have to be so fit because it's more like slapping
Yes.
versus this other stuff that you're not moving your body as much. Um, but everything is like the timings are interesting, and then they have these calls, and the calls about everything. It's almost like where the blues come from,
Mm-hmm.
because it could be about anything, but they could be sounding like they're crying about losing their loved one, but they're not crying at all. They're talking about let's get on up and move on out.
Yes.
And then they have ring shout. So he also does ring shouts where it's interesting. He studies from the Gullah Geechee people from mid-Atlantic all the way over into Texas, and then inland, because sometimes, like they say, oh, the Gullah Geechee corridor, you just think that it's just on the ocean, but this stuff, because what the imperialists did is that they moved Black people away from the ocean
Mm-hmm.
and pushed them west. So all that information went west as well to meet the Mississippi. And then on the other side of the Mississippi as well, as they moved them west, and then they went up into like Oklahoma, so forth and so on. So Gullah Geechee, I mean, he just studying with him was interesting. We're doing gentle studying. It's not like, okay, I'm taking a course. It's like we're sitting down. I'm talking about the traditional African music and how it's going back and forth, like the stuff that they're getting now,
Yes.
that people are doing. That's our soul and our funk and Gullah Geechee and all that, and they're selling it back to us. And then what we got when we were coming up was an adaptation to our sound still,
Yes.
from like Master Ibrahima Kamara Ibaye, Elijah Kamara Ibaye, all those drummers, Baba Tunde, they was giving us, these are the patterns,
Yes.
and you could do whatever you want with these patterns. You could single, double, triple, quadruple them to create these sounds. But the most important thing that I found with how we came up is that they had those rhythms so that they would actually go somewhere. If you look at the time, from the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, that music was like, I looked at a Sun Ra documentary last night, and it's like the rhythms. It's like the rhythms that we were learning. We'll just be doing a lamba, and it'd be nice going, but it would go somewhere. They would take it somewhere, so that it hits some place and out of space.
Yes.
It's just not for our enjoyment here. It's to make a point to send it out into the universe. And now it's like maybe the people are playing, but I don't feel like, to me, it doesn't do the same thing to my insides. It doesn't make me want to, okay, let me go out there, do halftime because I can't do full time anymore, and dance, or even want to drum with people who hasn't gone through that. What I call it's an apprenticeship of playing it simple and playing it slow, playing it together as a collective, creating, using that kuumba to create something to send into the universe that uplifts not only ourselves at the time, but everybody.
Yeah.
So I think that's something, but that's what I've learned from being here. When you're in a place where there's not too many drummers coming together, and then when we do come together, we share a lot.
Also, with that being the root, the training up of us coming in as youth and adults, you can better appreciate. But also, I think about how you said you were in Senegal. then you were at your home and you could hear, you could tune in to that frequency of that person playing across the way, and you even know
Right.
where to go.
Right.
That comes with that training.
Yeah, I follow
Starting on the
that
bell.
sound. Right.
You know. Now, do you notice, okay, if you were visiting Boston and we're at a studio, you're parking your car, are you able to tell, oh, so-and-so is playing? Can you
Yeah,
tell who's playing?
if I know who the drummer is.
Yes.
That was another funny joke, right? No, this is fun. This is funny. Okay, so we moved from Boston to Rhode Island, and then we come down here.
Mm-hmm.
So before we settled in Savannah, we went to Gainesville, Florida. So our son says, "Oh, yeah, there's a cultural event happening, with vendors and all that stuff at Santa Fe, community college. Y'all should go check it out. That keep you busy." So I say, "Okay." So we go there, and then it said there was a sign said African drumming at such and such and such and such and such. And this thing, violins over here and banjos over here, dancing here. This a jazz company, and so I'm hearing this drumming, and I said, "Is that Mazo?" I said, "Is that Mazo? I haven't seen him in such a long time." So by the time we get there, they stop. So I didn't see Mazo. And so I go up to his drum, right? I go up to his drum. I know his drum. I go to his drum and I sat down and I put it between my legs and I started hitting it, right? And so someone says, "Oh, that's the master's drum." I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And so then Mazo looks up at me and I go, "Mazo?" And he says, "Oh, that's somebody who knows me."
Yes.
And all his students said, "Oh, that's somebody who knows you?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Oh yeah, I heard you outside." So and when we came, you had already stopped. So it's like I can pretty much hear people that I played with,
Yes.
and that I know, even on recordings, like, it could be an album. I'll go, "Oh, that's Chief Bey. Oh, that's Giovanni. Oh, that's Leon.
Yes.
Oh, that's News playing on that. Oh, yeah, she did say she played on these days. They were called studio work, So it's like you can hear people's voices on their drum, or even on any instrument, whether it's a violin even.
Yes.
You can hear them.
Now, I want to ask you about when you were in Boston, you also had an institute in your home. We're talking about how so many things were home-based. We come together. Our Bantaba was in our home. Our base was in our home.
Right.
To study, to sew, to break bread together, and to organize. So when you were here, before you left, there were things that took place in your home. We come with our children for drum class.
Right.
And so do you want to speak about that? Because that's where you were before you left for Rhode Island, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's again in Roxbury, Massachusetts, on one of those school streets. There's 5 million school streets in Boston, but in the Eggleston Square area, we established Iya Mo'opo workshop, and that we started out by saying, "Oh, let's do things. Let's teach. Let's have people teach. Let's use it as a community base." And we did that. We started in 1990, and we did from 1990, and then we left in 2000. So that was a good 10 years of that institution being there, and bringing people from all over. Yeah, we had some people aren't here anymore. We had Baba Pega do what do you call it, the kola nut divination. We had Chief Bey do a legacy class, a workshop. We had what's his name? Felipe Garcia Villamil. And then there would be like sessions where people would come from different parts of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And be like, okay. Then we had Muhammad as a resident child,
Yes.
as a resident drummer. So,
Yeah.
you know, and a lot of people came through there. You know, that was a very good time. I always think about like even when I lived in Cambridge, and we would just do things out in the street a lot of street performance. Um, I don't know what they now. I don't think they do it too much of anything. We used to really have a good time just doing our art and being creative.
Yes. Now I'm going to go back again. What was it like as a Black female studying percussion at the time? Because you're talking about what year? The 70s and
Mm-hmm.
before that.
Yeah. Well, like I said, my first teacher was Kevin Alexander. So for
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, it's like somebody for me to play with. Great, you know.
Yes.
He didn't have any problem. But then I started meeting guys that were sort of like, but knew had already had pushed them aside and said, hey, you know, we either gonna work together or I'm gonna do my own thing. So, but challenging me by myself, you know, I would just say, I'm not gonna play with you. You know, I said, don't call me here to play with you, and I'm not gonna play. Hey, I'm not, and you don't want to. You want to tell me I'm doing everything wrong.
Mm.
I'm just here to play. Take it with however I'm playing. That's, you know, I'm not going out to do performances or anything. I'm playing for enjoyment. I'm playing to gain my chops, you know. So that right there was a couple of brothers, and then in the end, after they see that you've been doing it for a long time, they're like, oh well, I was wondering if you can play with me, blah blah blah. I say I get to do what I want to do, hold the bottom. Don't tell me anything else. Don't give me 5 drums that you want me to play, because I don't do that. I play the bottom. That's all I do. So you can have your 20 drums and do your thing as I hold the bottom. You know.
Yes.
Um, and and they actually stopped. They did have some people. Um, what was it? They say, oh, I would hear things like guys say, oh, women in Africa, they don't play drums. I said, that's not true. You know, I said this, otherwise, why are we playing drums if that was true?
Yeah.
Right. They wanted to, I don't know, it's like somebody would say, a Boricuan friend of mine who's passed away, he was a drummer and a timbale player. He would say, Kunga drama, they're a dime a dozen, but a timbale player, hey.
Ah.
So that's why he focused on timbale and studied with Tito Puente. So he was his protege for a long time. And it's true, you know, when it comes, drummers are best together in a big group or an ensemble, because we need each other to, you know, to make each other happy. And then eventually, if we get people dancing or singing, and if a singer comes and starts singing, we have to quiet ourselves and support that vocalist. If a dancer comes, we have to watch that dancer as the spirit moves in and out of them.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not as lightweight or come and play and you're playing the wrong way. But I heard guys say all of that stuff, and then when I went to Nigeria, I went to my friend's. There was another drummer. I went to his village because his father was doing installation as a second to the king.
Mm-hmm.
And they had all these, you know, the king inherits all these wives. So all these old ladies, right, in this village who were queens, they all had these tall drums like Baba Tunde would have, because it's a kitty area, and they would play in those drums. And my friend said, yeah, so we videotaped this so that you could take it back to the United States. And if anybody says that women don't play drums, tell them that the queens of this place play drums.
Wow.
I mean, it took all that time, but now you see all these women drum groups and all that stuff. They've been there. Most people said the reason why you didn't see all these women drummers, because the women are market women. They rather sell the drums. You know, they can play, you can dance, you can play it. You know, and they're making more money selling the instruments than they would be going around being, you know, performers.
Do you find, Sister Liz, that with studying and training, that you started out maybe in one area and then worked your way up in other areas as far as music and playing instruments?
Well, I stayed with the bottom, any bass drum, whether the tumbao in the Kunga family or the Junjun of the Junjun Songba, Kenkene. And then even with djembe, I tried my voice or my drum is toned for lower sound,
Yes.
for as far as the open sound. And I found like playing that junjun, you can find that drum all over the world. That drum is all over the place. So that's sort of a universal drum.
Yeah.
It is. So, and I like it. I mean, I played like the second part, in the Congo family played the second part, the third part, and then solo part plays on top of it. But it depends on what's going on again, because when you have the vocalists, you know, when you're just playing drummers by themselves, you know, you can do anything you want to. Yes. But when you have a vocalist come in, they're the ones that's conducting you or doing the directing. When you have a dancer, you have to, again, the same thing, you have to pay attention to the dancer and what the dancer is doing, and then whether the dancer wants to challenge you to mimic them and to play with them or whatever. So I always found that I do best at the bottom because I could work with the person that's at the top, the drummer who's at the top. And then everything else in the middle, we're pretty much controlling that. As far as tempo, feeling, everything is like, then it becomes a good unit. And as far as like training, I love dancing, but I just dance just to dance. Yeah. And then in 1979, I took a class with Out of Black Dance and Music with Natandra. I took Natandra's class. And we had been playing for Ajua's class all along at the Blackstone School. But playing for a class and then taking a class is different.
Two different things, yes.
Two different things. So we would do these warm-ups, felt like that's all we would do is exercise. Warm up our bodies and then try to learn some steps. And then it was Ife who was trying to teach me how to do that when that one step, I call it pat to pat, pat to pat, pat to pat, whatever that the step is that goes with that.
Manjani?
Yeah, Manjani step. Yeah. So I said, oh. So then from there, I just started taking lessons from basically the Out of Black Dance and Music, from the different people that I knew in a different way. Because I knew them I'm a drummer, and they were dancers. But I said, hey, why not get my body in shape, learn something? And then in 1980, 81, I met Ramon Sila.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because he was at OCBC, the old Cambridge Baptist, what was it they call what was it? OCBC, and the church in Central Square. Him and Fatu Kara were teaching there. Wow. And they had just had, I think they had just had Lila. She was just a itty bitty. She was just you know, I mean, she was like maybe 1 month or something like that. Wow. And so I studied, and I thought that was interesting because at the same time I was learning how to drum. plus to learn the dance movements, plus learn the historical. That's the thing about Ramon, is that he would tell you the deepness of a particular dance and how it came about, the music, how it came about, and what you're trying to do in this dance. It's just not a dance just to feel good. This is a dance to, again, going back to Sun Ra, I talk about Afrofuturistic. That's the latest thing nowadays. We were Afrofuturistic way back
before they labeled it.
It's
like everything goes hand in hand. There's a mind intent. When we would learn the dance, even as a dancer, that I've had the opportunity to go on Jundun, because we're always, if the musicians aren't there, we're singing the rhythm
right
amongst ourselves as we're dancing, and then you all come and we're ready.
right
But it's the same, it all goes hand in hand, but there's so much more to it. If you're playing a drum and you don't know what you're playing, you can damage your hands and your internal inside.
Exactly.
Because
That
it's such a physical thing. Yes.
Yeah, it really, and then it's not like some drummers would think that it's all about playing hard and heavy. After being around those old drummers, like all of a sudden all these real old drummers started coming. I don't know where they came from, but they were real old. And their hands would be like, I don't know, like hard leather, like the bottom of a shoe or something. But they did not bang the drum. They would just touch it and the sound would come out. So I said, oh, and that's what all of them, no matter if they're from Cuba, Brazil, Guinea, Mali, Senegal, they all say the same thing. It's what you put into something. You don't have to tear yourself up. You don't want to be outplaying the person that's next to you as far as loudness. You want to be with them so that together you're making a complete sound. And then the lead drummer, so they don't have to kill themselves, and the dancer doesn't have to strain themselves to hear the breaks or the lead drummer accentuating what they're doing, or trying to tell, you see if they're actually doing what the dancer wants. So it's like very interesting how some people, they just want to play loud and this thing and that thing. I think those ones are more at an immature space, because I think as you get older, you just know, okay, I don't have to do all that. My sound is going to be my sound.
Now, do you have any favorite rhythms, songs, or dances to play or to listen to? Do you have any that are your favorite?
Well, my favorite one from the Cuban rhythms is the whole suite of rumbas. So rumba is the national, music of Cuba. Then if you also listen to rumba is high life. So that's, again, bringing you to Trinidad, and throughout the Caribbean, everybody does that high life. And then even in Nigeria, you hear high life. And then those places like Senegal and Gambia, Mali, Guinea, all of them, they're all into high life. So that seems to be a universal, that rumba is a universal something. And then from there is I like lamba.
Yes.
Lamba done the way it's supposed to be done, not all this. I mean, some of the stuff I hear now is just like, here I get this one. I love this brother, right? But he got like, these people got like 6 junjuns or whatever, and they want to play everything. I said, why you have all those drums? You should give one drum to this person over here so they could, and give them the part. Give the next one to this person here, and give them the part, and you hold down the big drum. So, and you don't have to play too much. You're drowning everybody out. So back then it would just be each, so for Lamba, you just have one, you have your one junjun. If another junjun player came, then you have 2, If the whoever's directing the music would say, okay, you play this and you play this, then it gets to a point where all within the rhythm you can only play but so much as far as sound, and it
Yeah.
just becomes one. Everything becomes one. So I like Lamba because it is a healing um, dance, and it is a dance of all these different transitions in life, and it's also a seating place for the storytelling to take place, for the jolly to sing and to talk about what happened in the past and what's happening now, and to do the praise songs. Um,
Do
and
you?
then after that, yeah, I like 6/8 because
Mhm.
those 6/8, whether no matter whether it's Durumba or something to um the Orisha Ogun is still is something about that when it goes to a certain um height and tempo,
Yeah.
it goes back to the one. And it's interesting how music does that. You're not forcing it there, but it goes out into outer space, and then it goes back there. All you can do is just one. Mm.
Now, what schools? Now, have you taught at any of the schools in Boston as an artist
Oh,
or as
too
a
many.
teacher? All of them, huh?
Yeah, all of them.
What?
All of them. Which school was the worst now?
How was it embraced? I mean, in the beginning.
Well, I think because there was a lot of art activism in Boston, especially was cultural art activism. It wasn't that bad as far as the kids are kids, and I think the teenagers, to some whatever, now they're probably kicking themselves in the butt as older folks saying, I should have. Oh no, they'll lie and say, I learned that, and they'll call your name, call my name, and
Yeah.
everybody else's name. But at the time, they were fighting it. Um, Unless you said, oh yeah, this relates to the hip hop, and people don't believe that hip hop is from our generation. Uh, they don't. It's like, how do you know that? It's from my generation. Um, but I found that it was some of those old registrars and old administrative people
Hmm.
that didn't want to see the advancement of all the students, unless you went to a very well off upper echelon day school, then they would embrace everything. It's like, oh yeah, so because their kids are planning on living in Africa for 2 or 3 years, if not living at the embassy somewhere, you know.
Yes.
So it was like how they treated um, the black students versus and what they were giving our people, and then what you would see in the private schools where they get everything. They get to eat everything in private schools. And that was, other than that, the kids were all right. I remember I did this one program because they do theater. And it was an after school program. It was a cultural educational collaborative. I didn't do drumming as much. I introduced it, but that wasn't the focus. The focus was creating, um, original plays, and
Hmm.
talking about the neighborhood and creating stuff that you're going through. So those kids, I introduced them to as pictures of Senegal, and pictures of different African places, and they're like, oh, those are, you were staying, that's a hotel. Well, I thought that in Africa it was only jungle. I said, oh no. I said you can't even get to the jungle because there's so much city, and if you got to the jungle, you can't just go into the jungle, because there's some jungles have vines that will grab a hold of you if you don't have a machete to cut yourself away from those vines. They got all types of stuff, and you don't want to go in the jungle really. So I said, no, they have cities. I said Timbuktu is in
Mm.
Africa. I said Egypt is in Africa. There's all these great cities of Africa, but they was like, oh, they're modern and people have cars. So that told you that they were still being brainwashed,
Mhm.
that Africa wasn't happening, you know. But I hopefully today everybody knows that Africa is happening.
Yes. What are some of your proudest accomplishments?
Some of my proudest accomplishments. Well, one of my proudest accomplishments is Omi Tutu, collecting everybody together and saying, let's do something for ourselves. Let's be creative. Let's put it out there. Let's just go ahead and feel good about art and ourselves and our culture. And then that was the one. And then the other one is that when I did the same thing down here, we did Ona Tutu. And just to get artists who would, they would work together, but it's like, all right. But to really push them into making something happen for themselves and for their community. And all that stuff, that last one was out of the box. So that's what one person wrote in the comment.
Wow.
This was out of the box.
Beautiful.
And, that was that was something that I felt good about.
Amazing. Now, I want to ask you, because you used to, when you were here, also work with the batik and the dyes.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell us about that? And where did you learn?
Well, believe it or not, I learned what tie-dye. Tie-dye was working for, the ABCD used to have the summer programs. So one summer I was, working at, what's that school? Is it the Lee School on Talbot Ave?
Yes.
Yeah, I was working at the Lee School on Talbot Ave in the summer. And I had this counselor named Mark. And Mark is the one that gave me the name Liz. Because my family name, he was like, nah, no, you need to have Liz. So I said, okay. And so he said, oh yeah, we're gonna do tie-dye. I said, all right. So he says, this is how you do it. And he just pretty much showed me how to do this stuff just haphazardly. So I said, okay. And so he was using, at that time, everybody used rubber bands. But that was my first time. That was way back in, who knows when, 1973. And then I just didn't pay any attention to it. And then I ran into Sister Shani.
Yes.
And she was doing tie and dye. And then she said, well, I don't use Rit dye, because my mother also did tie and dye and just dye, and she would just get to make costumes and stuff. So she was showing me that she used cold water dye, and she would let her stuff sit in a dye bath like forever to get it really into the fiber. Then I saw these kids at one of those river festivals.
Mm-hmm.
They had cold water dyes, but they had added this gluten to it, so they could use it as a paste and do a quick dye. So it was like, I'm watching them do this, and they're squirting it on the t-shirts and whatever, and they're stepping on it. And I'm going, oh, this is something that somebody could do in the schools really quick. So I told a friend of mine who was directing the program, I got a quick way of doing this tie and dye. It won't take like forever, And so I said they could do it and then wrap it up and then take it home. So I started doing that, using Procyon cold water dyes and adding the paste to it to make it thick. Now you get all that stuff ready, set, go. Mm-hmm. But back then you had to everything measure out all the chemicals and this thing and that thing, and how much gluten and how much this, how much that. Now everything comes all prepackaged. Then from there I got into indigo dye. Well, indigo dyeing recently, actually, because that's what we have here is indigo, plenty of it. And at the art center here, I started, one of the coordinators said, oh yeah, you do tie and dye. Could you do an indigo dye class? I said, yeah, why not? Just here's the recipe. I said, okay. I took the recipe and, started doing indigo dyeing. We were supposed to do indigo dye class workshops, actually, Um, and then the COVID hit.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was the end. That we were supposed to do it in March. Then it went from March to May, and then they said maybe in the summer, and then October, and now it's been
Hmm.
a year again.
So how have you adjusted with the way things are going on in the world with your art and what you do?
Well, I think right now is a good time for artists to, especially artists who have been doing a lot for years, and then you have to not only do your art, but then you have to take on a job to, you know, make sure that you have a roof over your head and and the bills are paid and you're eating,
Yes.
because of the assault on art and artists, by defunding everything. And then when we scream and we say defund the police, people aren't understanding what we're saying when we say that. Take some of that money that you put into militarization and put it back into the arts, because that was the arts money that they put into militarization instead of us doing our work, and healing people and teaching people. And uh, you have to have creativity in anything, whether you're a scientist, whether you're a teacher, you have to be creative. Whether, you know, whatever you do in this world as a human being, you have to pull on that creativity. So, and this, I think for a lot of people, if, you know, teaching in general or being a performer, you need people. So then people go, what do you do? So everybody's on Zoom, you know, and some of the sessions on Zoom is interesting because some of them, there's so much feeling and there's so much love, there's so much energy that whatever anybody is feeling, everybody feels it, you know. And
Yes.
then there's some that you go on, if the people are flat and they're lacking creativity, it's flat. You're okay. Ain't nobody gonna say anything. Or you want me to be the instigator? So I found that this time is giving me more time to try to go back and see that, oh yeah, I got everything. It's like my computer's not up to date. So I got another computer. But now my camera that used to work with my old computer that I'm on now, it updated itself so it won't talk to my camera. Um, you know, it's like, okay, but I don't want to invest in anything that's not going to be able to advance along with the technology.
Yes.
But at the same time, I have all this documentation. You know, it's like you've been doing, is finding these photographs and saying, oh yeah, I remember this.
Yes.
Right. What was it? I had developed some film from way back, like 1980 sometime. And I'm going, oh, look at all these people, and all the children were just itty bitty, just born and stuff like that. I'm going, wow, you know. But to take the time to put all of that together,
Hmm.
um, and put it in some type of you know, catalog it, and so that it's archived.
Yes.
Because I think I did this one film, because I'm also into film and documenting.
Hmm.
This one, it was just like women in film. So this one group, they just had like a Zoom, and they showed some of their own stuff, and then they showed themselves passing down this documentary film stuff or collecting and putting things in order to their granddaughters, not their daughters, but their granddaughters.
Hmm.
And I thought that was cute, because the granddaughters, they look up to their grandmother like, yes, goddess, I'm so happy I have you. So and what they all kept on saying across the line is that as we get older and as people, as we're artists, we need to just put things in order as far as our story, telling our story.
Yes. Yes.
Because we don't really, and this is again what Senra was saying last night, we're not into his story. His story always repeats itself. We're into, you know, our story, and our story is my story, which is mystery, which is infinite. So if we put our own stories together, then nobody can say that that we didn't exist or that didn't exist, because we're the ones creating and living our story and then presenting it for the present and the future.
Okay. Okay. Sister Liz, I want to ask you, as far as the arts, um, dance, music, it comes from a community space that it's embracing to everybody. It's for everybody, meaning all ages and abilities. What are your thoughts around that?
I agree. It's for everyone. From the brand new baby that comes into the community and it's just sitting there with the mother rocking the baby back and forth and enjoying. Um, and if the mother uh, was dancing even while the baby was in the mother's womb, the child was already acclimated to that. To the grandmother, to the great great grandmother. Um, just my experience in Nigeria, it's like the bata drummers would come around and the dun dun drummers would come around because it was people visiting the compound. And they have these praise poems and praise songs that they sing and play for people on drums. And this one mama, she was at this time, mama was was still dancing, and she was 103 years old,
Wow.
right? And the way she danced was so gentle. You could see when she was a young woman how that dance would have looked like, you know. But as an aged mom, we call Mama Agba, old mother, she was so gentle, and it was so beautiful that the movements, when you're a young person, your movements are huge and big, and as you get older, it's all internal. You're moving your body internally, and outside is the gentleness of your age. So I think for all ages, when you see the generations together, because we've done some things together with intergenerational,
Yes.
with the small babies to the grandmothers, to the mothers, to the sisters and brothers, and it's beautiful to see that continuity.
Yes.
So for dance and music, you're never too old and you're never too young. We always get excited when the babies come up and drum or move around, and we always are inspired when some aged person who's older than us comes up and they even pick up a drum and they start drumming to the best of their ability, or they start dancing to the best of their ability, because they know that it's about living, it's about life.
Now, what advice would you give to artists who aspire to do what you do, or want to join in on the dance community and become a drummer, a dancer, or become involved in the arts?
Yeah, I would say just be yourself, and have yourself be open to learn, um, and to be able to explore your own creative powers. Some people they enjoy working with others, and some people are very what you call inward. So even if you have to do your private lessons or your virtual lessons, or if you can be in with a community of people and learn, and you also have to discipline yourself in that way. It's not just let me be loose, let me just do what I want. No, it's about discipline. It's not about art. Art is free, or freedom, but in that, to get to that freedom, you have to be disciplined. So it's something you have to develop. It's not something that comes overnight or takes away your blues instantly as somebody who is producing it. Now, if you're on the other end, the audience end, yeah, it seems like that's how it goes, because the artist has put a lot into take your blues away, or to make you feel a certain way. But I think anybody who wants to be an artist should go for it.
How can our audience connect with you, Sister Liz? Osun Kemi.
Well, if they would like to connect with me, I do have my little YouTube channel. Um, and it's my YouTube channel is Osun Ajija. So that's different. That's my tag for that one. Because there's so many Osun Kemis. But I'm also on Instagram um, as Liz Osun Kemi Coleman, the same as my Facebook page. So I ended up on Instagram because I'm a part of a fellowship of the Triple C's of New York, what they call CADI, to help and to bring artists together. So there's a lot of that going on too. Is that there's organizations who are bringing all the artists that they have and they know,
Yes.
bringing them together and supporting them in this difficult time of COVID and isolation. That there's I found that you could do a whole bunch of stuff on Instagram.
Wow.
You could act up on Instagram. That's what people. I find it funny.
Well, my dear sister, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. And I hope that everyone who is watching this reach out to Sister Liz Osun Kemi. And it's such beautiful pearls of wisdom that you have shared with us today. And I want to thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome.
Yep. And May, this is the last day of our year of 2020. So I'm praying that for 2021, we will continue to have good health and long life, that we're able to meet um, our benefits and our fruits of our labors
Yes.
in this new year coming, and that all our dreams and wishes for things that are good for us and for our families and communities, that it comes into manifestation, and all the negativity and all the craziness leaves our minds, so that we can be clear in what we are here to do as artists, as teachers, as mothers, fathers, daughters, sons, and so forth, that we're able to achieve what we need to achieve in 2021. Ashe.
Ashe.